Hello and welcome to Press Plus. My name is Ken Mijungo in for Mark Masai. This week we continue the conversation from last week, and of course you are aware of what has been happening in the country. We'll try and break down that for you, but first let's take a look at some of the stories we have on Press Plus tonight. Tear gas Monday, another Monday of disruptions as street protests characterizes different parts of the country. Dead or alive, when sections of the media failed the basic test of journalism and why social media was on fire. And Kinyanjui weighs in on the court protests and why the scenario is unchanging and the crowd unyielding. All right, and time now to welcome my guests, beginning from the farthest person sitting right there, Boniface Mwangi. He's a former journalist and, of course, the founder of Power 254. Thank you, Boniface, for coming tonight for Press Pass. Stella Cherono, our journalist right here at Nation Media Group. She writes for the Daily Nation. Stella, thank you so much for coming. Anthony Kibagendi, a businessman and a politician, very vocal in the social media and a commentator also. Thank you very much, Anthony, for coming. Judy Kaberia from Capital FM. She writes for Capital and reports for Capital. Thank you very much for coming, Judy. And finally, Dennis Itumbi. He is a regular figure. In fact, we should give him a regular seat here at Press Plus. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for coming for Press Plus. And we start the conversation from where we left last week. And to set the stage, let's talk to Judy. Judy, tell us what happened, because we want to talk about the court protest. It's Tear Gas Monday, as some other people will call it. In fact, they haven't gotten a definite name for it. But let's start from where we left last week with Mark Masai. So today again there was protest, but prior to this, there's a lot of conversation that has been going online and of course on air, on TV stations, newspapers about this character who was in the demonstration. And at first, sometimes last week, there was controversy whether he was alive or dead. Tell us your story, because this story was first broken by Capital FM.
Yes, first, before I begin, I would like to refer to a saying that a lot of professionals have indicated to, and that's: doctors bury their mistakes, lawyers jail theirs, journalists publish theirs for the world to see. And that is exactly what I did. Capital FM, of course, sent the alert that the guy was dead. But later on, when I followed up where the story came from, it came from an authority in Kenya. But later on, I asked, and where is the body of this person? I was told it's at the city mortuary. I called the city mortuary. They told me they had not received any body from Monday and Tuesday. The body that they had received was for a female from Machakos. And that's when I asked, could have the body been taken to KNH? And of course, this person from the city mortuary told me, no, it's not possible. And then there's a guy who kept on calling and telling me, no, this guy is alive, I have seen him. And first I thought, this is somebody who is drunk, this person is dead, because social media was awash and everybody had confirmed this guy was dead. But then I thought it's good to accept a mistake has been done, but it is good for us to establish where the truth lies. And that's when I tried to follow up with the contact that I had, and this person gave me directions all the way to Kibera in Ayani. And this is when I went to trace that person. I can tell you I didn't even believe this person even a minute. I was doubting it. In fact, I thought it was a setup.
That is the person who gave you the information?
Yes, the person who gave me the information that this person was alive. I didn't believe him even a second. I kept on doubting the entire of it. But I said, the fact that we have not seen the body, this person must be alive. And another thing I know about Kenyan media, we are very vibrant. There's no way somebody can be killed. There's no camera that was able to capture a body of somebody being picked up. That's another question I asked myself, and that is what now made me to get convinced that this somebody was alive. And the worst thing about Kenyans, we don't dwell on facts. We like, grouping people according to their political affiliation, or even going to an extent of deciding where somebody is coming from. And that's why the reason I had more than 600 insults on social media for just telling the truth. But initially I was a bit worried because the insults were really unreasonable. Some even texted me and called me fools. I mean, I'm a fool. I have powers to resurrect the dead. I should go and interview Jacob Juma, probably will come back to life. I mean,
That is when now you told the story that this guy is alive.
Yes, when I told the story and I sent the photos of this guy when I did the interview with him in his house in Kibera. Actually, when I went to his house in Kibera, there's nobody else who had gone there, and nobody else believed that this guy was alive.
The hashtag is Presspass at NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu, at Judy Giz, at Oletumbi, at Kibagendi Tony, at Stella Cherono, and at Boniface Mwangi. Tweet us with your concerns, questions, and contribution. We'll be sampling them. And while Judy was in Kibera looking for this person, Manono, to get the right information out, Stella Cherono was looking in the mortuary. Stella, tell us your story.
No, in the morning when we came to work, yeah, there was this hashtag that justice for Ngatia. At first, you know, the social media was abuzz with the name of the guy is Ben Gari. Then all of a sudden again is called Justice for Ngatia. So I decided to look. Of course, when someone is dead, you have to look for the body. And then again, the next thing is to look for the family so that they can confirm and tell you the story behind this person. And normally, after the story is done today, the next day you go ahead and look for what's the juicy part of that story again, so that it's on up to date. So we decided to go to City Mortuary. We went, like Judy said, we were only told that the bodies that were brought here is a child which was brought in the morning, and a lady was brought yesterday night, and the identity is known. So we proceeded. After City Mortuary, there's no body. We went to Chiromo. At Chiromo, we were told there are 3 bodies, but none of them was from the protests. So the next thing was to call Boniface Mwangi, and I really thank him for that. He told me that he hasn't had anything from any family, and so he asked me if it's okay to look for the family members on Twitter, and he started the conversation on Twitter that we are looking for the family members from this guy. So all this time we thought that the name of this guy is Ben Gari, and then it turned to be Ngatia. I don't know the other name. It was Ngatia. And then later on, after Boniface tweeted, it turned out someone in Kibera is called Boniface Manono, and he's the same guy that people are saying that he's dead. So after that, after Boniface's tweet, and you know that Boniface has a lot of followers on Twitter, someone contacted me and told me that there's someone called Abdullahi Musa, who's actually with the guy in Kibera. So I inboxed Abdullahi Musa, and he gave me his number kindly, and I contacted him. And luckily enough, I spoke with Boniface, and of course he gave me the story.
So that's the extent the media will go to verify information. Unfortunately, that information, and it always happens. And
yes.
I want to bring in the gentleman, especially Itumbi, because there was a division while this discourse was going on. There was one faction that was really convinced the guy is dead, that Boniface Manono is dead. Then there was this faction that was convinced he's alive. And the faction that was convinced he's alive included the faction from Jubilee, because they really wanted to throw off that notion that indeed this person was dead. I'll be speaking to Itumbi, but as it turned out, Boniface, this guy also had his own shortcomings because he lied, as Andrew Cheng reported.
He has been the talk of town. When he emerged from the Hazina Towers, the police hotly in pursuit, not many knew him. Yet the kicks, blows and beating he received instantly made him the poster for the police brutality that marked the court demonstrations on Monday. Afterwards, he was hurt and was barely moving.
Wale watu niliona karibu walikuja kuniongelesha ni watu wa media. Ndio walinigusa na kuniongelesha kama najisikia. Ndio nikaangalia juu nikawaona, wakaniambia unajisikia, nikawaambia wakaniambia unaweza amka, nikawaambia nasikia uchungu. lakini wakanishikilia kuketi hivi. Ndio nikawauliza naweza pita njia gani ndio niende kule nilikuwa naenda, wakaniambia sasa hivi wamerudi juu, teremka hii na utalii line, utakuwa safe.
Boniface Manono says that after the beating, he went and slept in Uhuru Park to recuperate. It was his uncle who came for him and took him to Kibera. Asked whether he was part of the court demonstrations, he denies.
Nilikuwa naenda Westland ku activate my account kwa Uber taxi. Nilipofika sikufaulu, activation haikufaulu, nikawa nimerudi nikuje University Way na mguu, ndio niende Nyerere Road nikuje Serena nipande gari saa kuja Kibera kuona my uncle, at least anipatie mkopo wa pesa yenye ningeenda kutumia kwa nyumba.
NTV cameras, however, captured him during the demonstrations. The same jumper, the same trousers and the same hat. He doesn't appear to be just passing by or having just dropped from a matatu from Westlands. He appears to be chanting along with the demonstrators. It is also far from the bus stage to Kibera where he says he was heading. Still, Manono, who lives in Gashie, denies showing any belligerence or being armed.
Nilikuwa na wallet na simu. Hiyo ndio vitu zilikuwa kwa mfuko yangu. Sikuwa na mawe yote.
It was not just Manono who was beaten. Many protesters, unlucky enough not to have a quick means of escape, found themselves at the mercy of boots and clubs. Others managed to get away by their speed and climbed fences to safety. Yet for others, it was their sure feet that ensured that they sustained fewer strokes, but they were still beaten. Manono himself was injured mostly on his back, but has already sought medical attention.
Ile kitu ilifanya nikimbie ni kuna wale walikuwa nainua mikono juu na wanachapwa. Sasa na mimi nikaona nikiinua hata niinue hata nifanye nini nitachapwa.
We'll talk about the police brutality. Boniface is familiar with that, and the media is always covering protests, and I myself have been caught in the middle of a protest. We have first-hand experience with the police, so we'll be talking about police brutality and how journalists manage to cover the protests, because we've had also concerns most of the time when we see the cameras are right in the thick of things and the policemen are there. So a lot of people are wondering. We'll be talking about that, especially even Judy was covering a protest today. Anthony Kibagendi is familiar with this, but first, the notion that there were two factions pushing different agendas. I'll start with you, Itumbi.
Ken, I'll not get into the box of trying to say we represent a Jubilee faction. We just represent the truth. The truth is that the man was alive. He was not dead. There is no faction there. It's not Jubilee. There is no CORD. There's just truth and a lie. Number two, we in the digital department at State House, we run a digital verification hub, which is a wall where we do real-time tweets and Facebook updates and YouTube videos. They go into a stream and you are able to identify what is happening about every event. So on this particular day, we noticed Abdullahi Musa. I'm actually impressed that that is the same person who made the contact, who had said that they were with Boniface Manono. And when he actually tweeted that he put on his Facebook that the guy was seeking medical attention to be able to go to hospital. But then when we followed Boniface Manono's other mentions in the past days, because it keeps a record, when you now put it up, we saw that he was from Gashie and not Kibera. So there was a bit of confusion on why he was in Kibera and not Gashie, where the tweets were showing is where he actually lives. But when we engaged with the various people who had talked about him on that digital verification hub, we then noticed the man was alive, and we went with the truth, because what was of concern at that time was the truth.
Whether he's alive or not. Can I stop you? Because
no, he's alive. It's not a question
that time.
There is no doubt.
Okay, at that time he was alive.
There's nobody somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. All right, let me speak to Anthony. I know you represent also Face, and I've seen you in the protests, and I still want to stick with the notion that there was a faction that was really proving, because CORD, for example, observed a moment of silence in honor of the dead man who was not really dead.
To say the truth, the social media was awash with the story of Ngati at that time as having lost his life from the beating he received from the police. And we did not have a way of verifying when everybody else was saying RIP, we want justice for Ngatia and all that. I'm surprised that our journalists, I'm actually impressed that our journalists here tried to get the truth, to exonerate the government from what would have actually tarnished their name greatly. Although it has happened today a few people have died. Again, next time you can try and go beyond City Mortuary and Chiromo, go to Nairobi Hospital and ask whether those any of the protesters were taken there. That aside, I would also want to understand why was, yes, we understand the media likes to give the truth, but what was this energy, what was this drive that they had to give out, to demonstrate that actually this particular person was not dead? And how come Itumbi...
You mean the media, the mainstream media?
The media.
Okay.
And how come Itumbi gets to know where this guy comes from, other than what the media is actually telling us? He knows that this guy comes from Gashie. This gives me the idea, actually what I saw on social media, that Itumbi and his friends had hired goons from that region of Gashie and Dumberi to come and infiltrate the demonstrators so that they can loot and harass the public, to give a negative image to the court demonstrators.
Let me respond to him as a journalist.
Okay.
First, there was no interest at all. First, some of the journalists, I believe, and I will always believe, that we have professional journalists in this career. It's not every journalist who is not professional. We have a lot of professional journalists in this country. And it is quite unfair to lie that somebody is dead when somebody is alive. Can you imagine if there's a certain Ngatia and the information is everywhere on social media that this person is dead? Then what is my role as a journalist if I don't tell the truth? I had no intention whatsoever. When I went to Kibera and posted the photos of me interviewing the guy, a lot of people picked them up. Itumbi picked it up. A lot of people picked it up. Others didn't want to believe that this guy was alive. Okay. Can you imagine to have gone into the history books that somebody died? What if actually we never did this story?
Let's before you respond, I want to bring Boniface because
put a direct challenge.
You will respond to him
It's
directly.
important I direct now because he's just put it to me. I think Kibagendi thinks he's addressing a press conference. I think it's good to remind him that we're in press pass discussing coverage of media of events, and therefore in a press conference as a politician he can throw any allegation that he needs to. Let me remind him this, that I explained we have a digital verification hub and a tool called Swift River. I challenge him to download it because I can see he uses he has an iPhone and I think a Samsung phone. He can download Swift River, which is a tool that captures all the tweets and Facebook updates. And when you put them on a stream, Kibagendi, let me educate you now to get information even for your constituency as you buy. You are able to get how many bananas your farmers in your constituency in Kitutu Chache were able to harvest last year. It is a tool that you can use for economic empowerment. And by the way, the Nation today also got it wrong. On their Twitter handle, The Nation Breaking News, they actually tweeted a clarification after saying that a protester in Kisumu had died of gunshot wounds, and Dr. Sam Aula of Aga Khan Hospital said not. And so the Nation had to clarify.
I don't think it was a wrong tweet because they were basing their tweet on information that he died following a gunshot wound. And not.
We have a tweet by Nation Breaking News. I think you need to look at it, clarifying that they were wrong. Are you now disputing that they did not clarify they were wrong?
Sometimes you make mistakes, but when you clarify, you are a journalist and you understand.
I agree.
Yes, Boniface, let's talk to Boniface. I know you're burning with this. First,
I'm not really burning. I'm actually amused by the conversation. Yeah.
Verification. One, you came to the social media and managed to trace this, and that's the way this information came out. So let's talk about the aspect of verification. You are a journalist. Do you think going with that information in the morning was a goof on the part of the media?
It's a very tricky situation because there was a hashtag about someone who died. We saw the beating, and we didn't think that man survived because it was very severe. And the story was that he died on his way to the hospital. And when CORD observed a moment of silence, and Raila Odinga is a prominent personality in this country, and since someone had died, we all believed. That's the same way Raila said that his car was hit with a gunshot, and we all ran with the story on page 1 instead of the police brutality. So there's no, I don't blame the media actually, but I also commend the media for the verification that actually took place afterwards, because it said if someone has died, he must have family, he must have a place where he calls home, and they followed up. But I think let's not have the truth about factions between CORD and Jubilee, because we're losing it here. I don't think it's about these two. I don't think it's about Dennis or Kibegendi. It's about the truth. What happened on that particular day? There was obvious police brutality. What happened the following day? It was about Raila's car. Page 1 The Nation, page 1 The Star, page 1 The Standard. It was about Raila's car was hit with a gunshot, or it was shot at, something like that.
So we would ideally have gone.
We
with
lost
it.
the story because the story is about police brutality and police responding with excessive force to unarmed demonstrators. That was the story for that particular day.
Okay, we'll talk about that. But Anthony, you have the right of reply. At what point did you look at this thing? Because the media was caught right in the middle of it.
Yes.
We have to accept that. The media did not know which side to report. That's why you see tweets flying around and some people reporting real time about this. At what point did we lose the plot as the media in this?
I think the social media seems to be giving us information faster than the mainstream media. And there are certain personalities that we have in the country that once they post a tweet or a Facebook update, it goes viral, and we tend to believe, because sometimes back they've given us real information, they've given us, they've broken news that mainstream media don't have. And that is when some of these people actually updated, and immediately it got to high places, including you had the former Prime Minister actually, and the entire CORD fraternity held a minute of silence. That is when now the entire nation believed that this person actually had passed on.
Okay, I'd like to take a break, but there's a tweet here from Eve Chege that I want a response from Bonnie. Authenticity has replaced authority as a new currency of journalism. The tweet is up.
You want me to respond to that?
Yes. Do you think it's true? Because
It's
that's
true, actually. If Raila is authentic, Itubi is authentic, Kibegeni is authentic, you're going to go follow that. I think normally, depending who is saying it, it's the truth. That means if I said something like, if I said tomorrow I'm going to IBC, it's not news. If Raila says it's news, it depends who is saying it. Yes. It becomes authentic depending who is saying it, because of the gravitas behind the personality.
Okay.
No, I disagree. I mean, in the strict training of journalism, yes, prominence plays a role. Yes, how proximity plays a role on how close it is. But eventually, actually, in one of the best books, it's by Bill Kovac. He says, in the end, the discipline of verification is what separates journalism from entertainment, propaganda, fiction, or art. Listen to everything, observe everything, doubt everything as a journalist, and then prove it. Then at that point, especially when it touches on...
Living in a very fast world,
yes,
it's very hard to verify everything because information is moving very fast. It was 6 dead in the morning. Now how many people died?
3 at the end of the day.
But I think about 3-4 p.m. we're saying it's 6 people who had died.
I mean,
But I think you see, as journalists, I don't think it's good for us. Okay, fine, we are facing challenges because of new media and social media, of course. We can't run away from that. But what distincts social media from the traditional media is the professionalism. I believe there's no point of a traditional media organization competing with social media, not based on facts, but based on rumors. Sometimes we've really, done serious mistakes in this country just because the traditional media wants to compete with the social media. Yes, we understand we have to make money and all that, but I think what distincts traditional media is the objectivity, professionalism, and responsibility. As long as we do that, then we are the same as the social media.
But what about an authentic
We
source?
take a break.
Let's have a discussion on authentic source.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have a discussion on the authentic source. Remember, you can tweet us at NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijung, at Presspass, at Boniface Mwangi, at Ole Tumbi, at Stella Cherono, and at Judy Giz. We'll be back shortly. The hashtag is Presspass at NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu. A few feedback here. Sister Sika says, so that's how we deal with the so-called nuisance, with more violence. That makes That makes no sense. We'll be coming back to that discussion on police brutality. But first, here's a post from someone who's been very vocal about what happens in the mainstream media from the Kenya Film Classification Board. Ezekiel Mutua says, while it's not the duty of KFCB to determine what the media should or should not cover, the board has the legal mandate to ensure that what eventually airs on TV conforms to the law. Airing of gory images, bloodshed, violent confrontations, including police brutality, must not be done in the manner likely to promote or glorify anti-social behavior. If these scenes must be shown on account of an overriding news value, then the media should take them out of the watershed period or put a viewer warning that the same could be disturbing. In principle, live coverage of such confrontations should be avoided. We urge the media to uphold restraint and uphold the highest professional standards in the coverage of the ongoing political activities to avoid plunging the country into chaos.
Why do you give this guy airtime?
It's important that we read this based on what we want to talk about, based on police brutality. And I think that's core. Boniface Mwangi, before as a journalist you made a name, you had a lot of recognitions of your work, but I also know that in the recent past, in the last few years, you have been an activist, sort of, and there's a lot of times we've met in the streets because of your activism. And police brutality is one thing that really bothers you. So let's start with you.
I think when we used to have a police force in the past, and under the new constitution of the police service, they're supposed to serve the people. But what we have in Kenya is actually a police that is out to destroy people's lives, shoot unarmed protesters, brutality. This is not the first thing people have been shot dead today. Today, 3 people were shot dead. Last year, there was a protest in Kajiado where people were shot dead. There's been excessive force used by the police. Last week, what you saw was the police were not trying to protect life and property. They're just being brutal and meting out their frustration of innocent people. And I think the problem has been both CORD and Jubilee MPs have been very silent when police brutalize protesters. And for the first time, they're becoming a victim of their silence. Because in the past, when you have been beaten and arrested and charged in court for lawful assembly, no one ever spoken about it. So it's not like yesterday or last week is when the police first beat people in the streets. It has been happening over time. It's actually the norm. It was the norm in KANU days. It was the norm in the first Kenyatta days. It was the norm in Kibaki days of police brutality. But now, for the first time, we have social media, we have live transmission, and we have this big audience seeing that what is happening in this country. And I think the biggest shame is that when the media goes to cover this protest, they focus on the government side of the propaganda. They say that people are looting, and we ask you, how many people are arrested for looting? They say people are violent. How many people are arrested for being violent? You say the police had to control the crowd. If the government invested 15 billion shillings in the cameras, that means the government can actually track every single protester, every single thug, every single looter, and arrest them. What they're doing in the streets right now is very wrong.
I'll go to Stella. That accusation, you have been covering this. Tell us, do we play by the piper?
You know, Ken,
because I don't believe it. We have been really fair in terms of, but you tell me in terms of how we cover this.
We've been talking all along about police reforms and human rights, police observing human rights. There's even vetting of police officers based on their upholding of human rights. But when it comes to the ground, we don't see that. We don't see that happening. Like Manono's case, of course, everyone saw it. Manono was already on the ground, and he was helpless. But the police, 4 of them, were beating him. He was already there, helpless. And the police, they are beating every part of his body. I mean, if he's helpless, just arrest him.
And there are several videos that will be playing about the people who are brutalized.
And again, I don't want to play on one part. Like Boniface said, the police should, I think they should just be taken again on training on how to uphold human rights. Because we don't seem to be having that happening in Kenya.
Are there journalists who are caught in the crossfire?
Yes.
I know your camera was broken once.
Yes.
Yes, and
it happens. My colleague was beaten severally on...
mistaken as a journalist? So.
No, he had a badge. He had a badge, and he even removed the badge and showed the cops.
The question is, why do you send police to control a crowd with live bullets? Why do you do that?
I'll jump.
Let me finish, Ken.
Okay.
Before I go, I finish it. But there's also the issue of the protesters taunting the police. We saw that today. They just come. The police have
Even last
formed
week
a
on
human
Monday.
cordon, and then this guy is coming. He can see, yes, there are guns there, and the cops are there. They have everything that can harm them. But then this guy is coming, and he's just hurling all kinds of insults at the police. So there seems to be a discord between where do we draw the line between.
A police officer should be high tolerant of bullshit.
Yes, but if you know that this is a cop, why would you?
Why do you tell
and you
them?
know that
Kibageni,
already
tell
we
us.
know that Kenyan
All
cops are
my
not
sister is
a
saying here is confirming that police are brutal. We should fear them. They are not here to serve us. They are
Yes,
here to
and why
destroy
would
us.
you proceed to go?
1926, the same laws that brought the police and constituted the police are still in practice. Very few have changed.
Brother Boniface has said, we used to have a police force, now we have a police service. However, we have not changed the attitude of the police officers. We have not changed the attitude of their commanders. And again, even if you're a police officer, you get instructions. They work with commands. But again, you need to engage your brain. You don't have to kill someone like they did the other day. They almost killed that person, or the people they've actually killed today. And again, the police should be out there to protect property. But now, instead of them ensuring these protesters don't destroy property or don't harass the rest of the public, they quickly get into confrontation. They want to kick them, they want to throw tear gas, they want to ensure the stock of tear gas, we have more importation of tear gas. You know, and again, before I came in here, I was sitting down there with the bodyguards of the majority leader. And what they told me, right now, since the protest started, no police officer is going on leave. And every Monday, every officer in Nairobi wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they go back to sleep at 8 o'clock in the morning. Why? Don't you think they'll be bitter? You are the people who make them
Go
sleep.
to the streets or something?
No, wake up early and go to the streets, you know. So I listened to him and I felt like...
but that's not a justification
it is
to
absolutely
police
not a
brutality.
justification.
What do they teach them in school?
Okay, for me, of course, there have been excessive use of power by the police. Some situations were uncalled for. I don't support where you kick somebody and kick somebody even who has surrendered. I think there's a better way of dealing with such people. But at the same time, the police are caught. There's a dilemma here. The thing is, the Constitution permits peaceful demonstrations. But sometimes you've seen the aspects of criminalities. I mean, sometimes people have been roughed up on the streets, and we've seen people carrying stones. An example is Manono. Manono denies, I mean, even in the interview, mine was to prove that he was alive. That's all I wanted to prove. Okay. But what he said, whether he was coming from an Uber interview or he wasn't coming from the Uber interview, clearly was lying. You've seen the clip from NTV. This guy was in the middle of the demonstrations, and he was actually caught with stones in the pocket.
In the back pocket.
In the back pocket.
Yes.
Will you call that a peaceful, I mean, a peaceful demonstration?
We have already sorted that. He lied about that. Itumbi, when the majority leader was here, he said he doesn't speak for the government, neither does he speak for the National Police Service, so he's not going to answer Trevor on the issue of police brutality. Do you have a point on that?
Yeah, and I'll go through it, and I'll distribute a few documents here, which I'll be referring to from time to time.
This guy behaves like Patni. You know, Patni used to go bury people with documents
all over.
There's no problem, as long as
Let
it's
him
factual.
respond because we'll take another break.
As long as it's factual, there's no problem. I mean, documents are documents and they're facts. I have shared the Police Act. The Police Act is what governs how the police behave. On that's Cap 84. On Section 28 of it, it says...
Just briefly, not all of it.
No, of course. I mean, you have to allow me to prosecute my point. I did not interfere with everyone.
Yes, but you can't read the whole script.
Okay.
You can't read the whole script. We'll not allow you to read the whole script. But
Sure,
just,
but let me prosecute my point. You
All
can't
right, go
intervene
ahead.
even before I speak. So anyway, Section 28 reads this. A police officer may use arms against any person who forces, rescues, or attempts to rescue another person from lawful custody. Any person who by force prevents or attempts to prevent the lawful arrest of himself or any other person. On the case of Manono, that rightly applies. Number two, and
rightly applies.
Just a minute.
Applies.
The law provides.
The law provides for the kind of brutality.
My
What
friend,
did
it's
he
So
not.
why did Boynet,
I mean,
why did Boynet
force.
apologize?
I mean, I have allowed you to prosecute your
No,
points.
but-
Let me finish my point, then react.
So no, I'm not
The
reacting.
police
I'm just
act.
asking you.
My friend Boniface, let me finish.
But
the
the
police
Inspector
act. No,
General
no. Boniface, you have to allow
apologized.
me to speak. You have to allow me to speak.
I'll allow you to
A
speak.
the Police Act, Cap 84, Section 28, provides a police officer may use arms against any person who by force attempts or rescues another person from lawful custody, like happened in Migori today. Why live bullets were done is because people were attempting to get into a prison to free inmates. So that force and live bullets were justified. Number two, any person who by force prevents or attempts to prevent the lawful arrest of himself or any other person. After this, my team is going to tweet the full video of what, just a minute, of where Manono was escaping from, what he was doing. Do you know what he was doing inside there?
We don't. We'll wait for the
no,
video.
that's-
Yes.
that's- that's the point.
Video, yeah.
But I would like to
No,
ask.
no, just a minute.
So
Just-
if that man was
You
breaking
can
the
therefore
law,
not prosecute a point of something you don't know, Boniface.
Itumbi.
And that is always your
the
problem.
question is, me, I would like to ask you a question
I'm
so that
prosecuting my
you can
point. Once I
logically
finish-
reason. I would like to let
Once
us
I finish,
logically
I will
reason.
allow you to
Bonnie,
speak.
I'll take a break.
Wait, before you take a
Bonnie,
break, because
I
I
will
want
allow
to
you to
answer this.
speak.
Okay.
Bonnie, I will
Why
allow you
did
to
you
speak.
allow you to finish?
Hold
Then
on.
Yes,
you'll
exactly.
come
I
with
allowed
your
you to
point.
finish your
Yes.
point without
Itumbi,
interfering.
Yes, Itumbi, go ahead.
Yes, on Cap 84, 16.2, any person who disobeys any lawful order given by any police officer acting under subsection 1 shall be guilty of an offense and may be arrested without a warrant unless he gives his name and address and satisfies the police officer that he will be duly answerable to any summons. Then it goes to explain what
Okay,
the
so let us ask a
No, no,
question
let me
before you go to a
prosecute.
break.
Yes,
Maybe
ask.
you don't need to read the entire thing. So the question is,
Yes.
Manono was breaking the law. He wasn't arrested. You left
was
him for dead.
brutalized, yeah.
Manono was resurrected. Why haven't you arrested him for breaking the law?
Good.
So you're going to do a video.
The people, just a minute.
Propaganda
Good point.
video.
Good
You asked
point.
a
Take
question,
a
let me
break.
answer.
Yes, shortly.
Yes, very shortly. Mr. Boniface.
Yes.
When the people of Kenya
Yes.
went to the referendum in August 2010,
Yes.
we voted for an independent mechanism of
Yes.
police,
Yeah.
which is headed by civilians, to ensure that any complaints, and I'm not here to say once brutality is there should be allowed. Have you lodged any complaint on that brutality, Boniface? Have you, Kibagendi?
Listen.
The Constitution allows you, as a citizen of the Republic of Kenya, let's look ourselves as a nation first before we look at where we come from and our small conclaves.
A lot of tweets online, everyone complaining about how that person was treated. Once he fell down, a lot of you think that he should be arrested instead of being brutalized. But that's not the first image we have seen of brutality, and neither do I think it will be the last. And this goes as far back as the Kanu eras and retired President Kibaki. There was a lot of that happened. But Judy, just tell us, right in the thick of things, the people need to understand, because when a journalist is covering this, what kind of pressure do you go through?
Of course, a lot of journalists, I know in Kisumu and also in Nairobi, we can't run away from the fact that journalists are suffering in these protests. The camera people, before they get the best shot, before they get the shots of people being tear gassed and the people being falling down and being beaten up, they're risking their lives at the same time. But I believe Ken Mijungu, the media has a role to play. If I take you back to 2007, the media took political sides. We went back to our tribes. And this is the kind of approach sometimes that is coming up. Even when I did my story, what I saw was a lot of hatred, a lot of lack of facts. And people were arguing based on probably where she comes from or probably the political party that she could be affiliated to, instead of looking at the facts and looking at the kind of demonstrations and the kind of things that we are doing that are threatening our peace. And I think Ken Mijungu, the media today, we have a chance not to go back to 2007. We made our mistakes and then we started preaching peace after people had been killed, after hundreds and hundreds of people were slaughtered. That's the time we started preaching peace. And as guilty as we were, in 2013, we tended to be not sure about bringing out the facts. And this is where the Kenyan media will sink to again if we don't shape this debate. Because as a media person, I'll be asking myself, what is next? How are we going to shape the agenda of this country? Okay. The media has the power to do that, Ken Mijungu. And I believe we need to guide this debate. We are not going to shut up to see the country burn along Jubilee and CORD. I think we have to stand up and tell the truth. And even whether it's police brutality, let us speak the truth. Whether it's demonstrations, let us speak the truth. There are calls for dialogue. What is happening with that dialogue? Is removing IEBC commissioners from the office, physical presence, going to resolve the issues that we have in this country? I think we need the bigger theme of reforms. Okay. Electoral reforms, political reforms. I think there's a bigger picture to what is happening. And I think the media is the high time. We took this chance that we have. We don't wait for the country to burn, and then we start
And speaking
our
of the
picture.
I promised I'll read this, and I like us to end the debate. And my argument was, the Police Act is not absolute. It refers to the way the police need to conduct themselves. But the Constitution is absolute. Article 28 of the Constitution, every person, and you can pick it up, Arnold, every person has inherent dignity and the right to have that dignity respected and protected. 29, every person has the right to freedom and security of the person, which includes the right not to be. 29, B and C. Detained without trial except during a state of emergency, it limits it. And C, subjected to any form of violence from either public or private sources. Concluded.
Now, no, it's not concluded. I mean,
we cannot go back to this. I just promised I'll read the Constitution, which I think is supreme law.
Do you want to be the moderator of this conversation or a panelist?
Anthony hasn't spoken. Anthony hasn't spoken.
Anthony, I know. Just read it really fast.
You've raised an issue. Boniface Mwangi, during the Occupy Parliament protests, and 16 others, including Hussein Khalid, who at the time was executive director of Muslims for Human Rights, Muhuri, went to court, in the Constitutional Court, to try and tell the court that they were enjoying an inherent right, what you are raising right now, of those of the two articles.
The case is under appeal. You can't discuss a matter in court.
No, I mean,
the case is under appeal.
There's something called fair comment in judicial
this guy is dragging papers here.
So, my friend,
the case is in court.
No, listen. I mean,
so
what is your problem? Let's say what the High Court said.
He wants to call the part that favors him, and is the way he sees it.
Let him just read it and then move ahead.
Police brutality.
Yes. No. Let's just read it to me.
Boniface Mwangi and his team
argued
that they were peaceful,
yes,
and that they had not contravened any law, and that in fact they were protected by the Bill of Rights, and the bits you have just read are actually the ones which they quoted here. The court then went and listened, and that was Isaac Lenaola, and he concluded this way: any person that the police have powers, any person whom he suspects upon reasonable grounds of having committed an offense, and said that immediately the petitioners were fully aware that parliamentary proceedings were underway, and they went ahead to release pigs and blood, they were stopped by the police, and therefore the court upheld that the protests were not constitutional, and they ruled that the case must go on, and stopped Boniface and 16 others from stopping it.
So the case is
they're appealing that case. No. They're appealing.
So you have to choose whether you want to be a moderator
or a panelist. No. But you see, you cannot mislead this. You cannot mislead this. So we have to say
they are appealing. But when you appeal, whatever the judgment of the High Court is, they have not stayed this judgment, by the way. They asked for that, and the court denied them the stay of this judgment.
It is stayed, but they are not in court.
No.
All right, can we jump this?
It's not about me and you.
I'm the one in charge of this show, so let's go ahead. Itumbi, understood. Every case has different merits. Every case is unique.
But the merits are what you have read.
That is the truth. No, I read the Constitution.
And the Constitution
Let's go to
is what the
Anthony, you're
decided
banding
on.
with it.
You know, one thing I don't seem to understand with my friend Itumbi is that he doesn't realize that one time he'll be out of government.
You think that's why he's speaking like that?
He speaks like the law, the way they operate is almighty. They cannot be Itumbi. You need to come back to earth. That is one
That's
thing.
a sideshow. Challenge the facts.
Now, when you say that somebody being brutally hammered, that is within the law, and there were 5 officers who could have quickly arrested that guy and handcuff him and take him to Central Police, which was 10 or 15 meters away, that shows that you enjoy the brutality that the police are meting on the rest of Kenyans.
The Nation Distribution Manager wrote, Francis Kaka.
I read it.
Yeah,
I read that
wrote
about
a
his
brilliant
trust and
article
everything.
about how he was going for lunch. He was
At
mugged.
Victoria.
Those are capital offenders. They're not demonstrators.
Let me ask you, 15 billion shillings spent on CCTV. Arrest those guys. What are they for?
They are saying we ban
CCTV.
What Boniface is saying, let's ban
Anniversary Towers. Let's ban no cameras.
Let's
ban cameras.
Boniface, we will mute your mic.
I think we never don't agree on this.
Yes,
No,
can we
Boniface,
just
no,
drop
no,
this?
no,
This
Yeah.
we will
Boniface-
never agree.
Boniface
We will
is
never
saying-
agree.
Can you mute
Boniface-
both mics?
No,
I
no.
talked to Anthony.
No, where
and
the
Sharon
cameras?
and
Boniface
Zilisha.
is the people who are stealing.
No, Boniface is saying we ban anniversary towers.
No,
Then
no,
we
no,
go and
no,
review
no,
the
no,
CCTV
I did not say
cameras.
that.
No,
I did not
yeah,
say
but
that.
That is basically
All
his
he's saying-
inference.
all he's saying-
That is his inference.
We have security
All he's
cameras.
saying-
in
Security
Nairobi
cameras
City.
operate after the fact.
Then arrest after the
Arrest
fact.
those
They
Arrest.
have been arrested and charged.
I'd like to-
Which ones?
I'd
15
like
of
to
them have
take-
been charged.
Show us
Itumbi-
CCTV
Itumbi-
footage.
Boniface,
Kelele.
I'd like to take charge of this. The president himself, while in his tour of northeastern part of the country, said that Kenyans can picket, you can demonstrate, and even say if you like to lie on the road, do it. The only thing the president said is he cannot, because of what court is doing, change the IBC. He let them. So he said you can protest because that's a constitutional guaranteed right. However, it still does not take this off from the fact that brutality cannot be accepted.
Yes.
Any angle. You cannot look at it. I'm wondering what angle I can look at it and justify that Kenyans can be beaten on the street. I can't. Cherono.
I still don't believe that my friend Itumbi is actually justifying the fact that brutality was used.
The police are allowed
Yes.
to exercise
He's
excessive
quoting
force.
the constitution out of context to fit his argument. You see?
Quote it in context,
Yes.
Serrano.
Because you see,
Quote it in context. I've quoted you articles in the Police Act. Now, use the
nothing
context.
justifies the police.
Police is supposed to
Even the-
defend
Yes.
life and property.
Yes.
What are they defending?
They were defending, of course, life. And I've
Which
quoted-
life? Which
I've-
life?
Property?
First of all, even property. I mean,
Yes.
stones were thrown towards anniversary towers.
Java
And the
suffered.
I mean, surely.
Stone throwers.
Boniface.
Actually, I'm not
Boniface.
advocating for violence. I've not been arrested for violence. I'm here to say very well that we cannot allow police brutality. The IG apologized and said they're going to investigate that matter. But you remember last year when the tear gas school kids at a school in Langata Primary School, they said they're going to arrest and prosecute. No one was arrested, no one was prosecuted. So police brutality is the norm. But you cannot come here after so much struggle in this country to get a new constitution that gives the right to picket and peacefully assembly, justify police brutality. There's no justification of that.
The law.
You can disperse people. We need to teach police crowd
Today
control
in Migori,
and dispersing
the crowd attempted, and the Citizen TV has just aired this story, attempted, because they had a camera on the ground, attempted to get into the prison and free inmates. At that point, the police have the highest obligation to protect the state. And at that point, the use of maximum force is allowed not only by the constitution, but the enabling acts of police.
It
But
can be,
until-
even when someone is on
okay,
the ground.
until I see the evidence of that, I cannot believe
helpless.
the
Itumbi
government
has
part.
promised us tomorrow they will tweet the images,
The
of this,
images
and
and
I wonder
videos.
why it's taken too long.
They must manufacture these things. That's what takes so
No,
long.
that's not fair
If
to
the
Itumbi.
CCTV, if the
That's
cameras
not
we have,
fair.
listen,
That's not fair.
if the cameras that we have in this city are instantaneous and that the person in the control room can see and communicate on the ground, why was that not happening? Because it's supposed to be
But still,
actually real
Boniface, I
time.
don't think it's fair to say that they manipulate the images.
We are waiting. Why is it taking 8 days for an entire
All right,
government?
I'm told we have about 10 minutes to go.
I think with Jungu,
Yes.
I mean, as the media will be asking ourselves, what is our role in what is happening in this country? Of course, there's a police brutality, which of course I don't at all support. On the other side, we have demonstrations, and my biggest question is, where are we getting into? Every Monday, we are really having these bad images of people being beaten up. We have images of a country that looks quite unstable. Yet, I mean, it's something that Kenya has the power to control this. And as media, like I said before, I think we need to start shaping this debate.
Okay.
We need to start complaining about brutality. It should not be accepted at all. But on the other side, we cannot run away from the fact that we have demonstrators who are not peaceful. We have elements of criminals. And we've seen some of these police go so close to the police and actually intimidate them. So at the same time, we have to accept the mistake that we have. But as the media, I think we need to start shaping this debate. We cannot continue like this. Where is the future? For how long are we going to be here? We are going into election next year. Hopefully, I don't know what
My
is going to happen
question,
in that parliament.
my question
see-
would have been,
Yeah.
Itumbi, my question would have been, if this was not a discussion on Press Plus, my question perhaps would have been, the youth outside there demonstrating, do they understand what really is taking them to the street, or they're following up the authority figure to the streets? Do they really understand? But because we can't discuss that in our forum, I'm told we have very few minutes. I'd like us to take this moment and reflect on exactly what should happen in such a case, that we are out there, we're telling the story, and Kaberia, and you'll have to help me, Charon, in this, and we don't look impartial, we don't look like we're taking sides, because that's what the media is being labeled.
I think the first thing as a journalist, and we have always been told this, is to verify information, and never be subjective. We are told to be objective in every time we report. So in this case, like we are saying, police brutality, we have to justify our argument. And if there's another side to maybe like taunting the police, which I've already talked about, if you know that the cops are dangerous, if you know that they're going to beat you up, why would you provoke them to do that? Yeah, so I think as journalists, we really have to be responsible. We have to take care of our country, like Judy is saying. Because if we don't take care of this, we are going to see a scenario whereby, God forbid, we are heading to a pre-election violence, which would actually
be disastrous for this country.
Yeah.
I'd like to come to Itumbi before I give you a round. Itumbi, for example, today, on this, still on this, the court leadership was driving to town, and even before they disembarked from their cars, there was no provocation, and that just comes from this. There was no provocation, but you just saw the water cannons start spraying water on them. In that case,
today was a different scenario because the law requires, and in the two rulings, by the way, and I will not go to them, there is another ruling which I have not read and I will not read it, the National Citizens Forum, and I challenge the listeners and viewers to go and watch it at the Kenya Law Reform website. There was a very clear ruling that you must notify the police, not for a permit, but you must notify them. In this case, in fact, the leader of opposition today called it stupid. They were not going to inform the police about the protest. So as far as the law was concerned, the police were not notified of any demos, and therefore there was no point of doing it. But Mijungu, you also quoted some laws here, and you just read B and C, and did not go to D.
okay.
D of 24 clearly reads, the need to ensure that the enjoyment of rights and fundamental freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and fundamental freedom of others. That is a very important
D on which one?
24D.
24D.
Yes.
Okay, I'll look at it.
A protest must be inconveniencing, because a protest is the last resort of the poor, the weak, the one who can't be heard. You don't go to protest to convenience people and not to make people happy. You go to a protest to be heard, and that's why you block roads peacefully. That's why you create a bit of like mayhem, like a peaceful mayhem, where when guys are rolling on the ground, carrying twigs, carrying placards, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Perfect. In democracies, in the rest of the world, there are places that are designated for demos.
No, forget about the democracies.
No, just a minute. I mean, you cannot quote the other democracies
because
when it's convenient.
no.
And when not,
I'm going to quote the Constitution. Let us refer to a document. The Constitution of Kenya.
Yes, the Constitution of Kenya
is absolute in this argument.
No, it's not absolute. There are only three cases where the law is absolute: in the right to life, in the freedom from torture. And those are the only situations where the Constitution is absolute. Get your facts right. Number two, disruption is not allowed, because it is a sabotage to the economy, and the police are trained to ensure that the rights and other people enjoy their rights and fundamental access to the same rights you quote for yourself.
Great.
Now, your president, the president of Kenya,
Boniface, I have to jump you. I'll give you.
Was he sabotaging the economy of Kenya when he was a member of parliament? The president was in the streets.
I know. He was wrong at that time. He was wrong even now. Yes.
The president was wrong.
At that time, he was not president,
Anthony,
but he was wrong.
You guys are going to take our right away from protesting because
Anthony, go ahead. Boni will not shut up.
When Itumbi says the police were not notified, how come they were all over the streets? They were
How did they know?
How did they know about
There is something called intelligence gathering.
Itumbi,
This is the government of systems.
In all fairness, there was a press conference by CORD on Saturday. We covered it, where they said they will be back to the streets on Monday. Is that sufficient notice?
No,
that's a debate for another day. Anthony, continue.
No, it's not a debate for another day. Notification under the law is clearly defined.
No.
So the president said, I'll read for you the police.
Itumbi.
I'll get to that close.
Go ahead, Anthony.
As
you get it.
As Itumbi gets his paperwork from his suitcase, you realize the police were adequately informed, because immediately after the demonstration last Monday, our party leader said, we will be in the streets next Monday. And within the week again, we had the clergy visiting
IBC.
Visiting actually the opposition. And again, the party leader said clearly, we'll be in the streets up to when this is resolved. A day or two later, we had a press conference where the party leader and the opposition in general said, we'll be having our protests on Monday. So I'm wondering which other notification the police need to get.
We have
and
to...
Anyway, now, probably moving forward, the media seems to be focusing on the protests and the brutality. They don't seem to focus on the real the matter.
The reason why.
Yes.
I think in all fairness, we've also done that.
That's what I'm saying. The media, we have the role, and the role ours is how do we move to the next level.
And
Judy, let him finish, then we can...
That is what I was coming to. First, we need to realize it is the IBC the opposition wants out. Credibility has sunken to its lowest, and I guess it's just a matter of time, whether through parliament and other means, IBC will be out. They need to talk about this and what does the law provide. Number two, the media, you're telling us the media will try to be impartial and what have you. We know a few of your colleagues here have been sacked for being impartial. They want, we know the government and Itumbi and his friends want the media to portray them as being clean, as being the best government we've ever had. Yet we know the amount of corruption, we know the amount of police brutality, we know the amount of money they literally steal from the public. Okay. So we need to be realistic. When again, Itumbi will come here and tell us Raila needs to go to parliament to deal with this matter from parliament. And we know the tyranny of irresponsibility we've seen in parliament. They push for even people who are not supposed to become CSs to become CSs. They push for anyone to just pass because they think it is us versus them, okay, instead of focusing on purely merit and integrity.
A huge challenge to us, I must say, as the media. I'm giving you closing remarks, and as I begin with Bonnie, Itumbi, whoever sent you that should have sent you the whole text on 24/1, and it states to what extent this can be limited by law. He sent you D and C under all fairness. He did not send you the whole. We'll have that debate after this, Itumbi. I hope we can. But if you read it in whole, it actually makes sense to what we were discussing.
There are judgments in court, Ken.
No.
By judges, not by law. On that chapter. So yeah. I mean,
24, yes.
So it's not something we can discuss.
Have that,
it's decided in court already.
Okay.
So I mean,
Bonnie, closing remarks, and in terms of what we should do to make, you see, this us versus them, media taking sides.
I think let's first take a step back a bit for a second.
Okay.
The poor shot in Migori were allegedly broke in a prison lorry that was transporting 50 prisoners. They're not trying to invade a prison. So I'm trying to tell him that he's actually misquoting the facts.
Okay.
I have no problem with Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka being in the streets. They are currently unemployed, and they blame IBC for that. So it's their right to do that. I think court has 119 MPs, and they should go to court and take a motion and follow the constitution. So as an average citizen of this country, I have a right to protest. I can do that. Raila Odinga is average citizen. Kalonzo is. If you are not employed by Parliament and the Senate, you can go to the street and protest. But for the people who are lawmakers in this country, you should try and beat Jubilee in Parliament, because they have not tried, actually. They blame tyranny of numbers, but they're not trying. So yes, we have a very arrogant government, extremely corrupt government, but we have an extremely incompetent, foolish opposition that has no game plan. So these arrogant, corrupt people and the foolish people are making Kenya's clash. And at the end of the day, it's us who suffer. Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther never went to the streets with their cars. They walked with the people. If Raila Odinga, Wetangula, and all the core leaders want to go to the protest, walk with the people, because when the gunfire comes out, you get to run away with the bodyguard. Don't go with the bodyguard, because they feel offended. As a protester who goes to the street with his wife and kids, I feel it is very wrong for you to put people in harm's way when you come in your car.
And people have died.
Watembe miguu, waende wasema ABC toke, and we shall support them. But hii mambo kwenda kwa magari, watu wakipigwa wanatoroka, ni aibu. It's embarrassing.
Well done, well said. Cherono, your last words. I know you face this every day.
Yeah, mine would just be to encourage the media to at least follow the truth and always dwell on the truth. Because if we start going by what our bosses believe, what we believe the parties we belong to, I think we are plunging the country into chaos and violence, and everyone is going to suffer. Again, the youth should not be used. Like we've seen, you can't see the relatives of these people going to the streets to protest. And they come to the scene and they park their cars strategically. And when the tear gas goes off, all of them have
And even the media is left to suffer.
Yeah, the media is left to suffer.
But we still have to get the information
and the vulnerable poor is also left to suffer, even to die.
Okay. Well said, Anthony.
About protesters, it's purely about passion. Most of the people you see on the street are passionate. They want to see change, and change is constant. What I would like to say to IEBC, it is done. The opposition has achieved its plan. IEBC is completely soiled. They'll have to leave. Definitely now we are giving, the Jubilee people have been saying, why don't we start it from Parliament? We are telling them, hey, even you keep saying, even us, we don't want this IEBC. Why don't you start the process in Parliament? And again, Isaac Hassan and Letangule, the main speakers amongst the commissioners, they need to be told, even our former minister, Kimunya, said he would rather die than resign. And they keep just thumping to the extent we think they hold brief for somebody other than the opposition instead of being non-partisan. So they need to be informed that in times like this, they need to look like they are not partisan. And when just thumping like that, we feel, some of us feel, hey, they have someone who is protecting them, that they are there to actually serve.
Judy.
For me, of course, I look to the end of the dark Mondays. I think that become dark Mondays, and today was the fourth Monday for us to see
and
people being kicked on the streets, almost to dying, and stuff. We've heard, of course, that people were killed. But I think as media, like I've said, we have a role to play. How do we shape this discussion to the next level? Are we going to spend the rest of our lives covering people being killed, being beaten up like, some flies or something of the sort? I think the media has a responsibility. For example, when you look at the Constitution, Article 251, it spells very well how we can get commissioners out of out of office. Physical removal, of course, does not mean that they cease being commissioners. But I think as media, we need to start getting the experts, the constitutional experts. I've already spoken to Bob Mukangi, and he says the Constitution is very clear on how these people can come out of the office. The people who are protesting, are they aware about what we can do to bring this demonstration to an end? And of course, the issue of demonstration. Do they know that demonstrations are allowed as long as they are peaceful? Because I think it's okay to demonstrate, it's allowed even by the Constitution. But I think even some of the protesters, of course, I can't say there are no people who come in there, but I think, are they aware that it is wrong not to hold peaceful demonstrations? And sometimes they fall into those problems because they go against the law. But I think as the media, we have the responsibility to tell the truth. Like Cheron, I'm very happy that there are journalists actually who took that hassle to go to the city mortuary and do all that. To go to Kibera even when you don't trust people. And I think the Kenyan media, I'll not let them down. I think the media is really trying, despite the challenges of the social media. Verification is quite a challenge, but I think we are trying.
Sober, well stated, and finally,
this court takes alleged violations of the Bill of Rights very seriously. Without the Bill of Rights, and specifically Article 24, the Constitution will be rendered a feel-good document. However, parties seeking orders with regard to such alleged violations must read the Constitution as a whole and contextualize it properly. A selective reading of it and a selective approach to what is only beneficial to such parties will receive no consideration by this court, and the petition by Boni Mwangi and others was thrown out. I will respond to the issue. I will respond to the issue of asking for notifying the police. In fact, the Public Order Act not only says you have to notify the police, but gives a form. In that form, you're supposed to declare the full names of the person applying, the physical address, the postal address, the telephone/fax number, proposed date and time of public of meeting, on between what hours and what hours, and it goes on with several other things, including the assigned asking for the permit. That was not permit for notification of police. That was not done. The issue of tyranny of numbers. This was thrown to me, so allow me to respond.
Yes.
Tyranny of numbers.
Really fast.
Yes. On the issue of tyranny of numbers, we have been told about Wafula Buke's petition. Out of the 29 members of the Legal Committee or Legal and Justice Committee in Parliament, only 5 court members dissented. The rest agreed with Parliament, and the document sailed through. So it is not true what Kibagedi is trying to tell us. The PAC report on IEBC, which was tabled in March, even Junet Mohammed, who is leading this protest, did not sign that document. Finally, the President of the Republic of Kenya stood at the Moi International Stadium, Kasarani, lifted the Constitution and the Bible in peace. and swore fidelity and allegiance to the Constitution. And on that basis, his key role is to defend that Constitution. And I will read it this way. The letter of Paul to the Church of the Philippines, chapter 4,
Can you read
verse
it?
8. No, just a minute.
We have to end it
Chapter
too.
4, 8.
Yes.
That whatsoever is true, whatsoever is noble, whatsoever is excellent and praiseworthy, think only around those things. And I add, in the interest of the Republic of Kenya.
So is the
That's not in the Bible. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have to end.
How do you
here.
manage
No,
that?
no. We have to end
Stealing
here.
the name
We'll
of
have
God.
another opportunity
When they
to
wanted
talk
to
about
disband
this.
EACC because
We
they are
can't do
targeted
this. We
people.
can't do this
You're
again.
supposed to resign.
We
You're supposed to
can't do
resign
this.
as well.
And I'll ask for the mics to be muted as we end this. And I also want to end with a tweet. We promised to read some of these tweets, and I just read one. It's called "In Finn We Trust." I don't know who that is, but she or he says, psychology confirms that those people who argue with loud voices during discussions are always telling lies. Thank you very much for watching Press Pass.
When you're born, you cry
My
loudly.
name
Doesn't
is
mean
Ken
you like-
Mijungu. Thanks very much for watching. As always, the discussion goes off air but continues offline. So before we end, because we always have to end in a light note, let's take a look at what we have discussed in a lighter note.
Wale ambao wako huko wakaribie. Tiangazi ndio chakula yetu.
Bas. Upon that declaration that is tear gas is a delicacy, Kakamegans today joined the anti-IEBC protests for obvious reasons. Kisumu was also not left behind as protesters had a busy day running the town. Things were, however, a little different in Mombasa. The coast demonstrations took a reality show format. Actually, they even had a host.
IEBC must go. If not today, tomorrow.
Guesswork also observed what could be a catalyst to the stereotype that some Coastarians are lazy after a demonstrator was caught on tape walking with his hands so that his legs can rest until the police arrive to chase them away. That way, his feet have no excuse for not doing their job. Experts have revealed that protesters may get addicted to a unique brand of tear gas labeled Tears of Joy, and this could explain the level of commitment to Shisha Monday. We also got hold of footage of this gentleman siphoning tear gas from the said brand for personal use. However, this was later clarified after we noted that it was actually a journalist just taking a selfie of fresh tear gas allegedly to forward to KANU Secretary General Nick Salat on WhatsApp. He likes his tear gas fresh, thereby he can enjoy it via video. Prior to today tear gassing fiesta, Interior Cabinet CS Nkaisari pledged a substantial amount of tear gas.
Monday, mimi niko na tear gas ya kutosha.
This was delivered as promised alongside a water truck to help demonstrators wash their face once they hit the tear gas limit. This is no longer a developing story because the future is not visibly clear with all this tear gas in the atmosphere. Representing the Guesswork fraternity on Press Pass, it is the one and only Kenya.
Of course, the best way to end Press Pass. As always, thank you very much for watching. Just a clarification in 2 seconds. Suna East MP Junaid Mohammed commenting on what Dennis said. He says that he was away in the country while that report was being signed. The reason he did not sign it. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming, and thank you, ladies, for coming and talking to us on Press Pass.